What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. Let's be real. It was a pretty underwhelming trade deadline for the Grizzlies. Instead of adding an impact player, the second-best team in the West offloaded 2 players.
Now, last year, that team was really motivated in non-conference play, maybe took conference play a little bit lightly, and it showed in the results. The messaging to this year's team about taking every game seriously, especially once you get into conference play, what's that been like so far?
Yeah, that's been the most weird thing to me.
The Thunder have outscored them by 70 points in the first 2 games, the second highest point differential in the first 2 games of a series in NBA history. However, if you want a little bit of hope if you're a Grizzlies fan, we know this building, the Grindhouse, is a different beast at this time of year. All right, Tyrese, first and foremost, congratulations on the win. Big bucket, 18.4 seconds left, give you guys a 4-point lead. Talk me through that possession.
I know you're team first, but being able to say you are the program's all-time leader in passing touchdowns, passing yards, number of other things, I imagine has to be pretty cool. How do you view those?
Their stars were going to have to shine under the brightest lights. And in the first half, one of those stars did exactly that. Dane Danger had 15 points. That was the best player on the floor in the first 20 minutes of action. For the 3rd year in a row, Memphis has struck gold in finding a star player in the transfer portal. In 2022, it's Kendrick Davis. Last year is David Jones. This season, it's P.J. Haggerty.
If you're complaining about him not doing more of that this week, you are very much missing the forest for the trees. That's not his game. It probably never will be, and it doesn't matter because we have proof of concept that he affects winning basketball during the regular season. Oh, I've been waiting all week for tonight's edition of 2 Cents, and there's only one subject we could talk about tonight. So I flew home to New York for a couple days this week, and of course, while I didn't have any Wi-Fi in the air, bombshell news broke. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, the first to report an offer from Memphis to join the Big 12 for $200 million. That'll grab your attention, as will the fact the Big 12 apparently had no interest. And when you look at what Memphis was offering the conference, it is perplexing to understand why. Here are the key points of the offer as reported by Dellinger. The $200 million price tag over the next 5 years, largely paid through sponsors the university would bring to the table. Memphis would take zero money from the Big 12's current TV deal with ESPN and Fox for the next 5 years. And if the conference deemed Memphis wasn't bringing enough value, they could kick them out after the 2030-31 academic year. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. Memphis would be taking on all of the risk, and an enormous one at that, while the Big 12, a conference trying to keep pace with the SEC and Big 10, could count the millions and kick Memphis to the curb in 5 years if they wanted to. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me. So what gives? So I thought this quote in the Yahoo article was really interesting, but above anything, really stupid as well. A Big 12 administrator said, quote, "We vetted Memphis when we added the other 4 schools, Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU, and chose not to add them. What's changed now?" End quote. The Big 12 voted to expand in September of 2021. Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF announced they were leaving the American for the Big 12 in June 2022. So that vetting process started a little under 4 years ago and took up to 9 months. If you're actually asking what's changed for the University of Memphis in the last 3 to 4 years, there's no explanation other than you are being willfully ignorant. Now former Memphis athletic director Laird Veach said a little under 2 years ago, the biggest hurdle to the Tigers joining a power conference was the need for a stadium upgrade. Well, if the decision makers within the Big 12 have all been in a coma for the last 2 years, or if they've all gone blind and haven't seen the gigantic hole in the side of Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, that project is well underway. It will modernize the stadium and be done by the start of the 2026 football season, which would have been the perfect time for the Tigers to slide into the conference. So the supposed biggest need was fixed. But wait, there's more. And credit Jeff Calkins at the Daily Memphian for pointing out. Since then, Memphis has been designated a Carnegie R1 Research University. We already covered the upgrades to the stadium and, of course, the NIL deal with FedEx. So stadium, check. Academics improved. And by the way, with all due respect to the Big 12, they are not exactly a new age Ivy League either. Miss me with all that. And Memphis clearly has the resources to compete. And that's also not a theoretical. They have proven recent success in the 2 biggest sports that make the college sports world go round, football and men's basketball. Memphis was one of 7 schools, to finish last season in the top 25 of the final AP poll in both sports. Oh, but football only beats up on soft competition in the American. I mean, look at the Tigers' bowl game last year against West Virginia, a school from the Big 12. They were clearly in a different class than Memphis. Oh, wait, the Tigers beat them 42-37. Whoa, but Infield, West Virginia made a coaching change 2 weeks before and had a bunch of players opt out. That's not a good example. You should go back to the year before, the 2023 AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Hey, look, Memphis played another Big 12 school in Iowa State. Now, surely the Cyclones came here and whooped up on the Tigers. Oh, wait. Memphis absolutely dominated them from start to finish. 36-26 the final, and the game was not that close in reality. By the way, that Iowa State team had head coach Matt Campbell, quarterback Rocco Becht, top two receivers in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll that were taken in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft this year. That core played for a Big 12 title and a spot in the college football playoff last season. No excuses there. I'm not saying Memphis would contend for Big 12 titles in football. That would be silly. They haven't even made the conference championship game in the American under Silverfield yet. But would they be bad enough to justify kicking them out? Not buying that one bit. And I have not even talked about men's basketball yet. Look, the top of the Big 12 is loaded in men's hoops. Houston, Arizona, Kansas, Texas Tech, Iowa State. It's very good. But we also know the Tigers are for sure better than 2 of the 3 American programs the Big 12 let in, Cincinnati and UCF, without a shadow of a doubt. And Houston is a phenomenal program. Memphis pretty clearly showed they can hang with them and then some. Over the last few years, the Cougars were in the conference. Again, I'm not saying Penny and company would roll into the Big 12 and immediately be one of the top dogs. But with the recruiting pitch of being a Power 4 with how well Penny recruits already and the financial resource available, I think they'd be in the mix in the top half of that conference at least pretty quickly. Look, all that said, I just can't wrap my head around why the Big 12 turned this down. The only thing that comes to mind is the powers that be in the conference got wrapped up in the usual lazy narratives around Memphis' reputation as a city. And like I said, ignorance is bliss, especially when you look at the entire situation at large. Look, tough week for Tiger sports fans. The one thing that should make you very optimistic, the people calling the shots at the university clearly understand the predicament the athletic department is in. Dr. Hargrave and Dr. Ed Scott are clearly willing to make bold, outside-the-box swings to create a better long-term future for the athletic department. The university has the right people at the wheel to lead them through this. All you can hope for is one day the people in charge at one of those power conferences recognize the value of having Memphis in the fold. Until then, to quote Al Davis, just win, baby.
Look, we got needs.
Brian Hall joined the Memphis Police Department in 2003 and enjoyed the free food that came with it.
Basically, I gained 40 pounds from the academy to 2007.
Looking for a way to shed the weight, Hall found a community center in Raleigh that offered free MMA workouts. A 5-time wrestling state champion in high school, Hall was hooked.
And I fell in love with it, and I went to one fight. A month later, I had my first fight.
Hall became a professional fighter and by 2018 was also coaching at UFC Gym in Germantown.
Yep.
By 2020, he had plans to open his own shop.
I found this beautiful place here off Park and Getwell. It was empty, abandoned with cars and mattresses.
The back of Godbod Fitness is where Hall planted his flag, but he needed a few things. First, a name.
Someone gave me the nickname The Law because I'm a police officer for 21 years. And with the name The Law, when I was teaching classes, they came up like students. They was like, man, I'm going to law school today. And I was like, oh, that's a catchy name.
Name, check. Then he needed buy-in.
Like that, who else could believe in the move? Who else believed in the journey? You know, so it was just a journey within itself.
Westwood High alum Danny Barlow fights in the UFC. And like his sparring partner and fellow Memphian Jaleel Willis, who fights in Bellator, Hall has been there from the start.
I'm telling you, man, we travel around the world, and people will look at me, Brian, Danny, Paul, and with awe of like wishing. I've seen pro fighters look at their coach and look at Brian and wish that they had that type of bond.
You walk in the gym and the first thing you notice, there's no climate control. It's an icebox in the winter and a sauna in the summer. But there's a method to the madness because the fighters believe if they can push through the brutal training sessions here, they're ready for anything once that bell rings and they step into the octagon for a fight for real. That was never more evident than when Barlow scored Law School's signature victory to date, prevailing in his UFC debut despite breaking his arm in the first round.
If you can remember where you come from, the mindset that we give here, if you can remember where you come from, Memphis, Tennessee, the bottom, the struggle, the grit, the heat, like, man, you can be successful anywhere, man. Once I got to that highest level, I seen how important it was, like, then to say I did it from being from Memphis with Memphis resources. Nobody ever did that, bro.
In just 4 years, Law School MMA has gone from a lot full of trash to the most successful MMA gym in Memphis.
The secret to the sauce is grit and grind. That's the secret here, you know what I mean? It's like, and it really ain't even a secret. But if what we was doing was easy, everybody would be over here doing it, you know, and it ain't easy.
If you want to watch the MMA scene in Memphis explode, it's simple. Follow the law.
More people gonna start looking for guys, you know what I'm saying, coming out of Memphis with the Memphis resources.
The world gonna see that we got a future champion here in Memphis.
In the octagon, Matt Infield, Action News 5.